It is a true honor to speak before you today. In this moment, I wish to share reflections on something deeply personal, yet universal, love that exists without being witnessed, love for those closest to us, love for our purpose, love for our country. From the earliest days, I have been blessed to walk beside my sister, Sofia. Our paths are entwined not just by birth or title, but by trust, by shared moments, and by silent understanding. In the quiet of an early morning, in the ordinary gesture of a hand held, in the glance exchanged across a crowded room, there lies a love that needs no spotlight, a love that thrives even when no one else is watching. That kind of love without witness is a guiding light. It teaches us that genuine service and devotion do not depend on external recognition. It reminds us that the smallest act of kindness, the unspoken promise, the steady presence beside someone, all matter deeply. My sister and I have learned that our love for each other, and for those we serve, must be rooted in humility and sincerity. As I reflect on the role ahead, the responsibility entrusted to me, the privilege to be of service to Spain and its people, I feel that love and duty are inseparable. To serve with dignity is to act out of love even when unseen. To support each other like Sofia supports me is to strengthen the bonds that sustain us all. Love without witness becomes not just a feeling, but a decision, a commitment, a quiet promise that we keep. In these times of change and challenge, we are called not just to observe, but to act, not just to speak, but to listen, not just to hold titles, but to hold hands. Each one of us has within us the capacity to love without witness, to stand for what is right, to lift up others, to give without keeping count. Sofia, when I look at you, I see more than a sister, I see a partner in hope. Together, we will walk forward, grounded by our affection, sustained by our shared mission, and inspired by the belief that love, even when unseen, changes everything. And so, dear friends, let us embrace love that asks for nothing in return. Let us stand strong in service even when no applause follows. Let us trust that the silent acts of care are the true pillars of our future. May we honor each other, may we honor our duty, may we honor the love that quietly lights our way. There are bonds in life that do not need to be declared, that do not seek the light of public recognition, yet they sustain us quietly and completely. Sisterhood is one of those bonds. It begins in childhood laughter, in whispered secrets, in the simple comfort of knowing that someone understands you without words. Over time, it becomes something far deeper, a shared strength, a reflection of trust, and a reminder that we are never truly alone, even when our paths lead us into very different places. When I think about sisterhood, I think of responsibility not as a weight, but as a promise. The promise to stand beside each other in every moment, to hold steady when the other falters, and to celebrate each other's growth as if it were our own. There is a beauty in learning together, in discovering that our lives are intertwined not only by blood, but by purpose. In each season of our lives, this connection transforms, teaching us that to share responsibility is to share meaning. In the world we live in, responsibility often comes with visibility, with expectations, with the eyes of others watching. But true responsibility often begins where no one sees it, in the quiet choices we make every day, in the loyalty we show when it would be easier to look away, in the silent encouragement we offer one another. Sisterhood teaches us to shoulder these invisible responsibilities with grace. It shows us that duty, when shared with love, does not divide, it multiplies strength. I have learned that the deepest forms of partnership are built not on equality of role, but on equality of spirit. Each person brings something different. One may bring resolve, the other tenderness. One may carry calm, the other courage. Together, those differences create balance. Sisterhood, in its truest sense, is not a mirror but a complement. It is knowing that the light of one does not diminish the other. It reflects it, expands it, and turns it into something enduring. There are moments when responsibility feels larger than ourselves, when its reach extends beyond what we imagined. In those moments, sisterhood becomes a refuge. It reminds us that support is not weakness, it is wisdom. To rely on one another is to acknowledge that strength is not singular. It grows in companionship. It grows when we listen, when we forgive, when we choose patience over pride. Every shared step is an act of faith that what we do together can outlast what we do alone. Through shared responsibility, we learn empathy. We learn to see not only through our own eyes, but through the eyes of the person beside us. We begin to understand that our choices ripple outward, touching not only our lives, but the lives of those who trust us. This awareness brings humility. It teaches us that responsibility is not about control or command. It is about care. It asks us to lead not from authority, but from compassion. In every shared task, every joint challenge, sisterhood transforms duty into something human. It softens the edges of obligation and fills them with meaning. It reminds us that the path ahead is not meant to be walked in isolation. There is a quiet comfort in knowing that someone will always be there, not to carry the load for you, but to remind you that you do not carry it alone. Sometimes the world sees only the moments when we stand side by side, formal occasions, public duties, the visible gestures that represent unity. But beyond that, there are unseen moments that truly define sisterhood, the exchanged look that says, "I understand." The laughter shared after long days, the reassuring silence that speaks louder than words. These are the invisible threads that make the bond unbreakable. Shared responsibility extends beyond family. It reaches into how we serve others. It teaches us to value community over individuality, purpose over pride. When we work together, whether in family, friendship, or service, we embody the essence of connection. We become stronger, not because we agree on everything, but because we choose to move forward together despite our differences. To share responsibility is to trust. It is to believe that the person beside you will act with the same integrity and care that you hold yourself to. It is to recognize that success is not a solitary achievement, but a shared triumph. Sisterhood gives us that trust. It becomes the quiet foundation upon which greater duties can stand. There will always be moments of distance, times when life leads us on different roads, when responsibilities pull us in opposite directions. Yet even then, sisterhood remains, steady as the horizon. It is not bound by proximity. It lives in understanding. It grows through respect, through the silent pride we feel in each other's achievements, through the knowledge that no matter how far apart we may seem, our hearts remain aligned. As we grow, so does our sense of duty. We begin to realize that our bond, though personal, carries a reflection of something larger. When we support each other with honesty and respect, we mirror the values that hold families, communities, and even nations together. The patience learned in sisterhood becomes empathy in leadership. The courage found in shared responsibility becomes service in action. There is a quiet dignity in walking beside someone, knowing that neither leads nor follows, but that both journey with equal purpose. It is in this balance that harmony is found. Sisterhood reminds us that we are never above or beneath one another. We are companions on a shared path, and perhaps the most profound lesson of all is that love and responsibility are not separate forces. They are intertwined. To love someone is to feel responsible for their well-being, for their joy, for their peace, and to act responsibly is, in itself, an act of love for the people we serve, for those who trust us, for those who walk beside us. As I look to the future, I hold close the understanding that no responsibility is too great when it is shared with sincerity, and no distance can weaken a bond built on faith and affection. Sisterhood is not just a connection between two lives, it is a symbol of unity, a living expression of trust and shared purpose. In the end, sisterhood, and shared responsibility remind us of something timeless, that strength is not found in standing alone, but in standing together. That the truest form of leadership is companionship, and that the quiet promise we make to one another to always be there, to always understand, to always walk forward side by side is the promise that keeps love alive, even when no one is watching. There is a kind of love that does not seek to be named, that does not demand acknowledgement, and yet it shapes the world more quietly and more deeply than any applause ever could. It lives in gestures so small they almost go unnoticed, in moments that pass without witness, and in sacrifices made not for praise but for purpose. This is love beyond recognition, the kind that breathes in silence, that finds its meaning not in display but in devotion. I have always believed that true love is most powerful when it asks for nothing in return. It exists in the spaces between words, in the loyalty that does not falter, and in the patience that endures through time. Love beyond recognition teaches us that affection is not measured by how loudly it is declared, but by how steadfastly it remains. It is the love that holds us together when no one is watching, the love that gives without keeping count. There is something profoundly humbling in giving without being seen. The world often values what is visible success, beauty, praise, but there is a purer strength in what is done quietly, in the unseen kindness that asks for no audience. Love beyond recognition is that silent force that keeps hearts steady. It is the parent who sacrifices in silence, the friend who stands by in difficulty, the person who serves without expectation of return. It reminds us that love is not performance, it is essence. When love exists without the need for recognition, it frees us from vanity and pride. It becomes an offering, an act of grace. It teaches us that the greatest joy comes not from being admired, but from giving freely, sincerely, and completely. In such love, there is no fear of being forgotten, because its value does not depend on remembrance. It exists simply because it is right, because it feels true, because it sustains what is human in us. There are moments in life when one must give without knowing who will receive the benefit, when one must act with faith that good will endure even if no one notices. That is love in its most selfless form. It may be a small act, a gesture of understanding, a choice to forgive, a silent prayer for someone who will never know it was said, yet it carries within it the power to heal, to strengthen, to renew. This kind of love is not fragile, it is resilient. It is not fleeting, it endures. Because it does not depend on being seen, it cannot be diminished by being unseen. It becomes the foundation on which trust, service, and community are built. When we love beyond recognition, we learn to serve without condition, to care without possession, to give without demand. In this way, love becomes infinite not because it is celebrated, but because it continues to give life even in silence. Sometimes love beyond recognition reveals itself in the way we treat the world around us. It is in the respect we show for those who may never thank us, in the kindness extended to a stranger, in the compassion that acts even when no one else will. It is the force that moves people to serve quietly, to protect what is fragile, to create peace in the smallest corners of life. It is love that believes in humanity not because it is perfect, but because it deserves hope. In truth, love that asks for recognition is love that looks outward. Love beyond recognition looks inward. It is born from a sense of integrity, from knowing that the right thing must be done even if no one knows who did it. It reminds us that we do not love to be remembered. We love to remember what truly matters. To love in this way is to accept that life's greatest gifts are not those that are seen, but those that are felt deeply and quietly. In moments of solitude, when the noise fades and the eyes of the world turn elsewhere, we come face to face with the purity of this kind of love. It is then that we understand that we do not need to be noticed to make a difference. We do not need to be praised to live meaningfully. Love beyond recognition becomes the heartbeat of our humanity, the invisible rhythm that connects us all. Perhaps the most beautiful aspect of this love is that it teaches us humility. It teaches us that our worth is not tied to acknowledgement, and that the most profound acts are often anonymous. The ones who give quietly, who support from behind, who forgive without being asked, they are the silent architects of compassion. They are the reason the world continues to hold together, even when so much seems uncertain. In my own life, I have come to see that love without witness is not emptiness but fullness. It is the love that steadies the hand, that gives courage to act when no one is watching. It is found in the shared glance that speaks of understanding, in the quiet reassurance that says, "I am here." Even when words are not spoken, such love shapes the soul. It gives strength that no recognition can replace. We live in a time when visibility often seems to define value, but love beyond recognition asks us to look deeper to see that what matters most cannot always be seen. It challenges us to be kind when no one applauds, to help when no one notices, to care when it would be easier not to. It is in those unseen moments that the truest version of ourselves is revealed. There is a certain peace that comes from living with this kind of love. It frees us from the constant need for approval and allows us to act out of conviction rather than expectation. It teaches us that our greatest legacy may not be the words written about us, but the quiet goodness we leave behind in others, the kindness that inspired someone, the comfort that reached someone's heart, the hope that someone carried forward even if they never knew from where it came. Love beyond recognition is not a weakness, it is the greatest form of strength. It demands courage, the courage to give without control, to remain steadfast without validation, to trust that goodness has its own reward, even if it is invisible. It asks us to believe that what we do in love will always matter, whether or not it is seen. In the end, this is the love that endures. It survives the noise of time, it remains when applause fades, and it shines most brightly when everything else falls silent. It is the quiet force behind every act of compassion, every gesture of service, every moment of understanding. It is the unseen thread that binds us to one another and to the future we are building. To love beyond recognition is to live with purpose, to give with sincerity, and to hope without condition. It is to believe that the smallest act done with pure heart carries more meaning than the grandest act done for praise. And it is to trust that even when love goes unseen, it is never lost because what is real does not need recognition to endure. It simply continues, quietly shaping everything it touches. There are moments in life when words like service, duty, and hope feel larger than us, distant, perhaps, until we begin to live them. Then, slowly, they become part of who we are, shaping our choices, our voice, our way of seeing the world. These are not ideas reserved for a single role or person. They are the threads that bind every generation, the quiet commitments that give purpose to our lives and strength to our communities. Service begins not in grand gestures but in small acts of awareness. It is found in the willingness to listen, to understand, and to give of oneself without seeking return. True service does not depend on position or recognition. It is a reflection of gratitude. It comes from knowing that we are all connected, that the good we do for others inevitably returns to us as something greater. When we serve with sincerity, we not only lift others, we elevate ourselves. Duty, in turn, is the compass that guides service. It is the steady voice that reminds us of who we are and what we stand for. Duty is not a burden, it is a privilege, the opportunity to contribute, to protect, to build. It asks for consistency even when it is difficult, for integrity even when no one is watching, for courage even when the path ahead is uncertain. It reminds us that commitment is not measured by ease, but by endurance. Both service and duty draw their meaning from hope. Hope is what gives them direction. Without it, they would be mere obligations. Hope transforms them into acts of faith in humanity, in progress, in the possibility that tomorrow can be better than today. It is hope that allows us to see potential where others see limits, that inspires us to continue when challenges appear insurmountable. As I reflect on what these values mean, I see how deeply intertwined they are. Service gives purpose to duty, duty gives strength to service, and hope gives meaning to them both. Together, they create a vision not only of personal responsibility, but of collective destiny. Each act of service, each moment of duty, each breath of hope contributes to the quiet building of a future that belongs to everyone. To serve with love and humility is to understand that every person has a role to play in shaping the world. We cannot all change it in the same way, but each of us can touch it with kindness, honesty, and effort. The teacher who inspires curiosity, the worker who gives their best, the young person who listens with empathy, all are part of a shared mission that goes beyond self-interest. When we see service not as a task but as a way of life, we begin to discover the deeper joy of purpose. Duty often asks us to choose what is right over what is easy. It demands that we think not just of the present moment, but of those who will come after us. To live with duty is to carry an awareness of others in every decision, to recognize that our actions echo beyond our own lives. It is to respect what has been entrusted to us, to honor the sacrifices of those before us, and to protect the hopes of those who will follow. Hope, though gentle, is not fragile. It endures through change, through uncertainty, through the trials that every generation must face. It is the light that never fully disappears, even in the darkest of nights. It is the reason we continue to serve, the reason we hold fast to duty. Hope grows when it is shared. It becomes stronger when we act upon it. In times of challenge, service reminds us that we belong to one another. In moments of doubt, duty reminds us of our strength. And in every season, hope reminds us that even the smallest act can lead to something greater. These values do not fade with time. They evolve, they renew themselves through each generation that carries them forward. For me, the meaning of service and duty has always been tied to gratitude for what I have been given, for the trust placed in me, and for the chance to contribute. Gratitude makes duty lighter, because it transforms obligation into devotion. It makes service joyful because it teaches us that giving